Volcanoes may be found all over the world, and there are thousands of them, each one unique from the others. A volcano appears as a mountain or a sizable mound of dirt with a vent or cone on the Earth's surface. The potential of these massive undersea supervolcanoes, which appear ready to unleash their havoc on humans, has scientists quaking in their boots. What are the world's biggest underwater volcanoes, and are these monstrous volcanoes about to erupt? Let's find out. Submarine volcanoes are another name for underwater volcanoes. Underwater or submarine volcanoes are fissures where lava can erupt that are primarily submerged under the oceans of the Earth. Underwater volcanoes function essentially in the same way as their surface counterparts. Underwater volcanoes are most frequently seen deep within seas and oceans, primarily throughout the Pacific Ocean. Some of them can be discovered in shallow seas as well. How do they develop? It is crucial to first comprehend how land volcanoes normally occur in order to comprehend how these underwater volcanoes are generated. The three layers that comprise the Earth are the mantle, the core, and the outer crust. The mantle, which is made up of molten rock and gas called magma, is the primary ingredient in the formation of volcanoes. Fault lines are weak spots, gaps, or fissures that exist within the crusts of the planet. When the mantle is under a lot of pressure, especially along fault lines, a volcanic eruption is very likely to occur. The molten rock that is present in the Earth's mantle layer rises through these cracks during the eruption process as lava. The process through which underwater volcanoes form and those that occur on land are very similar. Although the total number of underwater volcanoes in the world is unclear, experts estimate there to be thousands of them dispersed throughout the oceans. The Tamu Massif is now the largest underwater volcano ever recorded. This volcano is situated 1,600 kilometers, 990 miles, east of Japan in the northwest Pacific Ocean. Tamu Massif is located around 6,500 feet, 1,980 m below sea level, and spans an area of 553,000 square kilometers, 214,000 square miles. The astounding height of this subaquatic volcano is around 14,620 feet, 4,460 meters. According to research, the Tamu Massif is thought to have originated around 145 million years ago, between the late Jurassic and early Cretaceous. The Tamu Massif's most recent eruption time is still mainly unknown. The Gardner Pinnacles is another of the largest underwater volcanoes in the world. In contrast to the Tamu Massif, a portion of this volcano may be viewed from the ocean surface. When we think of Italy's volcanoes, we may suppose that Vesuvius, which famously destroyed Pompeii, and Etna, which towers over Sicily, pose the greatest threat to the inhabitants and visitors of the peninsula. The southern peninsula and its islands may also be threatened by another monster. Marsilli is where it's at, and it's just 175 kilometers, 110 miles south of Naples. Marsilli is a real giant with a height of 3,000 m, 9,800 feet, with a base that is 70 km long by 30 km wide, 43 by 19 miles. It is Europe's greatest active volcano by far, but since its peak is 500 meters, 1,640 feet underwater in the Tyrrhenian Sea, you'll never be able to view it. The existence of Marsilli has been known to scientists for a century, but it has only been in the last 10 years that they have begun to look into potential threats that Marsilli might represent. Their findings are alarming. A 30 m high, 98 ft wave could conceivably hit the coastlines of Calabria and Sicily as a result of its activity, according to some recent simulations. Even worse, there would be little to no notice that the catastrophe was approaching, which is what is prompting some scientists to seek for new technology to track the movements of the Mediterranean. It is an old threat. Marsilli may have a complex of various independent volcanoes, but it cannot rival Tamu Massif in terms of sheer scale. However, Marsilli is still rumbling, whereas Tamu Massif has vanished. As the Eurasian and African tectonic plates are close to one another, there is increased geological activity there. In the worst-case scenario, a landslide may be followed by a 20-meter-high, 66-foot wave that would fall into Sicily and Calabria in 20 minutes. It is simply one of many volcanoes along an arc off Sicily's north coast and southern Italy's west coast. The Aeolian Islands, including Stromboli, Lipari, Salina, Filicudi, Alicudi, Panarea, and Volcano, which was called after the Roman god of fire and gave us the term for all such cracks in the Earth's crust, are some of these that have created land masses. 10 underwater volcanoes lurk for every one of these islands that can be seen. Marsilli was created about 1 million years ago. It accumulated 80 eruptive cones over the millennia, ranging from the north-northeast to the south-southwest, as well as numerous fissures and fractures that might all discharge lava. This potential time bomb, lying on the bottom of the sea off South Italy, was only discovered a century ago due to its depth under the sea. If the discovery of Marsilli was a long time coming, the development of scientific inquiry into its activities is even more recent. In-depth studies only started to be published in the 2000s. These results indicate that the volcano's most recent eruption took place a few thousand years ago. Today, all of its activity consists of low-intensity tremors and soft rumblings with gaseous emissions. Of course, this does not exclude a later, more dramatic return to life. Marsilli could simply be nodding. There is little chance that the blazing belch will ever reach the land or hurt the local inhabitants if the seamount were to erupt once more, because the lava and ashes produced by the explosion would be absorbed by the 500 mm, 1,640 feet, of water above the seamount. However, the potential for underwater landslides poses a greater risk than the eruption itself. If one of its flanks were to collapse as a result of the explosion itself or the seismic activity that preceded it, a tsunami would be produced. We now understand that prior catastrophes may have been impacted by undersea landslides from the Aeolian arc of volcanoes. For instance, the poet Petrarch wrote about a catastrophic storm that wreaked havoc on the Bay of Naples in 1343 and resulted in hundreds of fatalities. Sarah Levy from the State University of New York and colleagues recently conducted a study that raises the possibility that a tsunami with an origin on Stromboli may have caused this. The scientists discovered evidence of an old landslip that caused a tsunami to hit the Calabrian coast while examining archaeological data from the volcano. 2 tsunamis were caused by Stromboli's more recent eruption in 2002. Despite not reaching the mainland, the waves only affected the island. No one was killed by the surge. Unfortunately, we are unable to determine Marsilli's exact level of threat just yet. According to Glauco Gallotti, a physicist at the University of Bologna, we simply don't have enough data, but he adds that there are solid grounds for believing that it might be dangerous. One possibility is that the ongoing hydrothermal activity undermined the volcano's rocks. He adds that micro-earthquake recordings demonstrate the continued churning of lava in the magma chamber. We should investigate the possibility seriously for both of these reasons. Depending on the time of year and whether or not the tsunami hit during prime tourist season, if an eruption does occur, the death toll may vary. Marsilli may be the largest volcano in Europe, but as the Stromboli occurrences have demonstrated, its sisters might also offer serious dangers. It's important to keep in mind that there are at least 70 underwater volcanoes in the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Strait of Sicily, some of whose histories are completely unknown. The Palinuro volcano, which is 65 kilometers 40 miles off the coast of Cilento, is of great concern. Gallotti claims that new research demonstrates the volcanic complex contains a 150-meter or 490-foot layer of loose debris that might be moved by seismic activity. Future polls should ideally give more information on that structure and its likelihood of collapsing. The Italian government could need to take action to avert the potential catastrophe if the risk is high. There is currently no reliable monitoring mechanism in place to alert the people of Italy to an approaching tsunami. But according to Gallotti, building it need not be that challenging. He makes the observation that a network of buoys with motion sensors should be able to identify distinctive variations in the motion of the sea that warn of the advent of a tsunami. People in the affected locations might receive an automatic SMS notice as a result, allowing them to flee to higher ground before the tsunami hits. Ventura said it might be able to keep an eye on the volcano's own movements. The 2022 eruption of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai undersea volcano was the biggest natural explosion in the last century, even bigger than any nuclear detonation in the United States. Although the Tongan volcanic explosion in the southwest Pacific resulted in 4 fatalities, it is comparable to the enormous Krakatau volcanic eruption near Indonesia in 1883 that claimed more than 36,000 lives. Only a hydrogen bomb is capable of producing an explosion of this magnitude. This is unmatched by anything the average person has ever experienced. Tofua Island in Tonga had tsunami waves that rose as high as 45 meters, 148 feet, and Tonga Tapu, the island with the most inhabitants and location of the nation's capital Nuku'alofa, as high as 17 meters, 56 feet. The study also demonstrated how the tsunami could have been substantially worse while still causing significant damage. Researchers have discovered various records that were attained during the eruption on January 15, 2022. It caused a record-breaking amount of water vapor to be discharged into the atmosphere, enough to fill 58,000 swimming pools, which could briefly warm the temperature in the years to come. By ejecting ash 36 miles into the atmosphere, it broke the previous record for the tallest volcano plume recorded by satellites, going beyond what many scientists had thought physically possible. At 720 miles per hour, it produced the Earth's fastest eye waves, which at least 6 times around the planet. Although this eruption was significant and among the largest since Krakatoa in 1883, others of a comparable size since then have occurred that haven't behaved in the same way. The fact that it is an underwater volcano and that it contributed to the large tsunami waves makes this situation different. By investigating sediment debris discovered 80 kilometers offshore, the scientific team also learned new details on the underwater pyroclastic flows of the volcano, which are composed of hot, thick volcanic ash, lava pieces, and gas released from the volcano. It was also discovered that the volcano sent a massive plume of water vapor into the Earth's stratosphere. Only the 2008 Kasatochi Island eruption in Alaska and the 2015 Calbuco eruption in Chile emitted a large volume of high-altitude water vapor, according to NASA. It was also discovered that the crater of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano was 700 meters deeper than it was before the eruption. Volcanoes are highly essential to observe because of the numerous dangers they pose, including sudden explosions, landslides, and long-term climatic disturbances. A stark reminder of the dangers of residing on or close to one of the numerous volcanoes, active or supposedly dormant, across the world are the ruins of Pompeii, Italy. People and animals living in Pompeii were almost instantly covered in ash from Mount Vesuvius over 1,700 years ago. More recently, in 1980, Mount St. Helens in Washington state erupted, ripping more than 1,300 feet off the mountain summit and resulting in an estimated $1.1 billion in economic losses due to deaths, injuries, bridge destruction, and lost crops, among other things. Even seemingly dormant or inactive volcanoes can turn out to be dangerous. The Long Valley caldera, which is located in the Mammoth Lakes region of California, started seeping carbon dioxide and helium through the ground in the mid-1990s. Large numbers of trees in the vicinity were killed by the fumes, which may also be to blame for some fatalities and health issues among people. Volcanoes are recognized for their destructive force, but they are also a substantial source of new planetary crust and a pathway for minerals to cycle back to the planet's surface from its interior. Thanks for watching another episode of Voyager. While you're still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more mind-blowing videos about space.